welcome back. It's rolling.
Yeah.
Welcome back. Special thank you to Marty Zeitlin and Rav Nachman Fried and Breslov Research Institute, specifically my Rebbe, Reb Chaim Kramer. We're in the Aseret Tshuva, and we're still finishing up the Torah Chaf Daled of Mitzva Gedola B'Simcha. And in the word B'Simcha, we're trying to figure out, okay, because Rabbeinu Zal straight away then says you've got to be misrachek as much as you possibly can from Marashkar and Atzvos. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what are many different ways that one can remove oneself from Atzvos and Marashkara. So last time we left off talking about how everything in the entire Bria has significance. I brought a couple of interesting rayas from the world of science with the intentional experiment with speaking to plants and speaking to water, but not actually obviously to it, but it's just to show that the entire Bria is affected by what we say and do. And what Rav Nachman is going to tell us now, I'm just going to quote briefly from Pei Base, that's paragraph 82 in Chaim Moran, where he says, Im heyisem smechim, if you would be happy, he's saying it to a group of people. Rav Nosson was just finishing up Birkas Levan at the time. Im heyisem smechim hayatoiva gedola ha'olam. It will be a tremendous benefit, tremendous value to the world. So he's telling us when we're happy, the whole world smiles. Now, there's nothing that has insignificance, and because of that, it's an important. To maintain simcha, I've got to be in zone 3 to not forget that no matter what I say or do or think, it matters. It makes a difference. And therefore, I can always change my mind. We're going to talk about that soon because Teshuvah has a lot to do with simcha, and we're going to incorporate today because we're in the Aseret Teshuvah. Also in Kuf Tzadik Hey in Chaim Moran, Rav Nachman says the following: Bevadai kol mashenase be'olam, with certainty, whatever happens in the world, afilu mashenase bein ha'umais, even what happens amongst the nations, v'chol hanhagas mahalcham u'malbushehem, all their behaviors culturally and even their clothing are kol kasher lakol bevadai ein shum davar nase be'olam levatala has v'shalom. Even as the words has v'shalom, there's nothing that ever happens without significance. It's never for nothing. Nothing. So this is very apropos as we learn more and more, as I pointed out last time, that technology is enabling us to see the extraordinary complexity in the Bria and yet perfection at the same time. Perfection of design to the smallest, lowest detail. Also in 195, paragraph 195 of Chaim Moran has a similar, that's what we just said, 215. In 215 of Chaim Moran, Ze ani mamin v'gam ani yodeh harbe b'inyan zeh. I think I've quoted this once before. This I have emunah, and I know extremely a lot on this Indian. Shekol ha'tnuos, that all movements, v'kol ha'machshavos, all thoughts, v'kol minei ha'uvdos, any type of avodah, that's done for anything in Kedusha, ein shum tenua, v'lo shum machshava ne'evedet klal. There's no such thing as a single movement or even a thought that is lost. It's impossible. The entire Bria is affected by everything. V'akol nirsham lemala l'taiva. Everything is impressed above, that means it's recorded above. Ashrei shezoichim nikpoitz uledaleg al kol hamniyos. So happy are those who are zoicher, because it is a schus, it's not automatic. Likpoitz, jump over. Uledaleg, I get likpoitz means how would I translate that here? Sprint. I like that. Uledaleg, and skip or jump. Al kol hamniyos, over all the obstacles. Just to do any good avodah, whether it's a few words of davening, whether it's a bracha, whether it's a bracha achreina, it makes no difference how seemingly small it is. What we're bringing out is that everything affects everything. So the reason why this is very related to simcha is because one of the biggest things that will sabotage my simcha is believing that, there's nothing I can do or say or think that's going to make any difference. So what's the point in trying? And so one needs to be reminded again and again and again that the reality that the Torah gives us and that Rav Nachman is echoing again and again is that there's no such thing as a movement or even a thought that's ever lost. So in Torah 48 in Tinyana, it's I think 3 paragraphs before the end. We've got the same edition, right? Memches?
Yeah, Memches, that's the letter, right?
Yeah. So it's where it says Ki Hashem Yitbarach Male Rachmim Rotzeh Be'avodasecha Me'od. You've got the place?
Not yet.
It's about 20 lines from the.
After Achi Chazak V'Amat.
Where's V'dash Yesh Ilan? The paragraph above that.
Oh, okay.
Where, it's only about 7 lines above. Ki Hashem Yitbarach Male Rachmim. Hashem is full of Rachmim. So that's a very strong language because Male means full. There's no room for anything else, and Rachmim means there's nothing else except Rachamim. V'rotzeh ba'avodasecha me'od. Hashem wants your avodah in the extreme. V'da, and know, shekol ha'tnuos v'ha'atakos, all movements. V'ha'atakos means removal. When a person moves away from something that he should avoid. She'ata nitak, that you remove. V'netak b'kol pam ezam at min ha'gashmus la'avodah so yisbarach. Any movement you make towards or away from something that you shouldn't do, kulam. Every single movement, mitkapsim, actually come together, mitchabrim, and join, umitkashrim, and not together. I guess it's a not a kayama. Ubayim le'ezrascha be'ez hatzorech, and come for your aid at the time when it's going to be needed. So I don't see always how much I've prayed for this particular kid, or this particular marriage, or this particular deal, or this particular health issue. But every single word and every effort comes together. Dahainu, that means to say, Kashiyesh has v'shalom, when there is has v'shalom, Ezer doichak v'eiz tzara, there's a pressing time, or even a tzara, a suffering has v'shalom. V'da sha'adam sarach lavoy, so we've talked about this before, we've unpacked this a bit, that a person has to go, they haven't got a choice. We're in this world and it's a one-way street, it's a one-way bridge. There's no room to turn around. The main thing is not to make oneself afraid. But the point again here is that there's no such thing as an insignificant item. So even if I don't see the result of tefillah and effort in this marriage with this kid, keep going. Don't give up. Try again. Try another strategy. In Hempstead, I've lost my Tehillim. I hope there's someone in Uman will find it. No, it's okay. I wrote it out, but I lost it in Uman this Rosh Hashanah. It has my name in it and my phone number.
Left Avedis by the Tzaddik.
So I'm praying Hashem should find the right person who will say and get it back to me. In the meantime, there's an important chazal. It's a Medrash Yalkut Shimoni on Tehillim 67, chapter 67, verses 7 to 8. Eretz natna yivula, we say every day. The land will give of its produce. Yivarachenu Elokim Elokeinu, and Hashem, our powerful powers, will bless us. Now, Yivarach Elokim Yiru Osei Kol Afsei Aretz, and the entire world, from one end to the other, all the corners of the world, will have Yira for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, why will the earth be productive at this time? And that particular capital is talking about the final Gedola. That's because all the Rishayim will be removed from the world. And because they will be removed from the world, their influence will no longer pollute the planet. You've got to see the Yalkut Shimoni and the Metzudas there. And I'm sorry, I have it underlined in my Tehillim. It's an astonishing lashon that when Hashem removes the Rishayim from the world, there can't be any pollution, because all their thoughts and all their unkind words and all their nivel peh and all their litzanos against Klal Yisrael actually affects the entire Bria. And so the earth will give of its yevula, it will give of its produce, and it won't have any contamination. I think the word tame is the origin of contamination. So there'll be no contamination whatsoever because it's a spiritual contamination that comes from the leitzanos of the nations who are constantly at our throats and persecuting us. Anyone who came now just from may have noticed a slight difference in attitude of even service people on airlines and customer service. Even if you went to a business lounge, I went to a business lounge in Vienna, and they would let me in, but they wouldn't let my son and grandson in, who I had American platinum, silver platinum card, which you're allowed to bring an extra person for, and I had Star Alliance gold card, which and it was on the plaque outside the lounge that they take it. So we don't take that anymore. No, we don't take the
Just change the policy.
Yeah, change the policy. I said, okay, so I'll pay cash. We were there a few hours before. I'll pay cash. So no, we're full. There's no room in the lounge. So I turned to myself. I said, look, I'll just get myself a coffee, and I'll bring out some fruit and so wait out here. So I go in. It's the biggest lounge I've ever seen. I've never seen such a large lounge, and there were about 20 people there. It could hold a couple hundred. Full. Even for the love of money, the nations hate us so much. Even for the love of money, they prefer not to have another Jew in a business lounge, which is no loss to them, only gain. So I want to share with you, why am I sharing this? Because the pasuk is saying that when will Hashem give of its produce? When the Rishonim are no longer on planet Earth, they'll be removed, and with them goes every single spiritual pollution they ever brought into the world. So I want to touch on very briefly the power of nekama. Nekama is a very serious avera, to take revenge, and the reason why Hashem sends us humiliation and sometimes people insult us is for me to conquer my anger. Will I be upset, resentful, angry, or worse, try to get back at them? And nekama is zone 2. Nekama is not where I belong. Lo tikom v'lo titoret b'nei amecha. If you look carefully at Rambam in Hilchos Deis, I forget now exactly where, I think it's in Perek Beis, he says that the whole point of not having Natira and not having Nekama, not having resentment or desire for revenge, is because Yishuv HaOlam, settling the world and doing business and having relationships with people, is impossible if a person brings this into the relationship. You've got to let go. So he talks about shtika. I think it's where he's talking about the middle of shtika. But I want to share with you, I have a picture here. It's much better in the original one, which is color, where it's a sort of fascinating photo of a snake that was in a carpentry shop, and it slid past a saw and cut itself. So a snake's brain is not necessarily too brilliant to realize that it's just a saw and it's not attacking it. So it thought it was being attacked. So what does a snake do? It wraps itself around the saw, and as it gets more and more injured, it realizes it's not wrapping around enough. So it continues until it literally cut itself. So I have a picture. I don't know how well it's showing on here, but I'm not suggesting you have to go Google it, because other stuff might come up as well. But the point of this is what revenge looks like. Because who am I hurting when I want to get back at someone? Whether it's Has v'Shalom a shadchan, or an in-law, or parent-in-law, or Rahman al-Islam, or a neighbor, let go. Because I'm poisoning myself with nekama. Nekama is zone 2, and nekama is a huge sabotage of simcha. The purpose of Hashem sending us irritation, we looked at it a little bit last week, I think it was with Yisurin, or 2 weeks ago. The smallest irritation, Chazal have identified, you can put your hand in the pocket to get out 3 coins, you took out 2, so you've got to put your hand all the way back inside. That's called already tachlis hayisurin. It's purposeful. It's playing a purpose. So every time we are irritated by someone or something or a phone call, it doesn't make it, literally doesn't matter what, a red light. The red light is designed more than safety to give me an exercise in patience. The waiting online, and some of us waited a few hours at the borders the last few days. Waiting online it's not about waiting for the passport and getting across. It's more about a tikkun hamidus than anything else. So when I do react with anger and frustration, what does Rav Nachman tell me? Don't get down on yourself. Because Hashem loves us so much, guess what Hashem will do? Give me another chance. And he'll send me another frustration, till I finally figure out that the purpose of these people and situations and traffic and the customers, not that customer again, whatever it is, it's perfectly designed for me to flex my savlanus, my vatranus. And being a savlan and a vatran is what Rav Nachman, I think, talks about many times when he talks about bittul, and if necessary, closing one's eyes to let go and just surrender to the way the world is acting upon me, because it's not acting upon me to hurt me. It's a perfectly calculated world. So for this, we mentioned before, tefillah really works. Please give me patience. But the danger of that is Hashem will give me exercises, because that's the only way I can get it. I can't get it as a gift. That's not fair. I got to work for it. And therefore, I've got to overcome irritation. So I'm actually asking, please give me more exercises in irritation. That is what I'm asking for when I ask for patience. So we have to be careful, because tefillah works. And as Rabbi Yitzhak Breiter, we've quoted before, said that if I'm working on a midah or anything, and I see what the tefillah is not being answered, it's either because I didn't daven enough, or I didn't daven, or I didn't daven enough, or I didn't daven. That is the only real hishtadlus that actually makes any difference in the end. When one looks carefully at Tehillim, and you look, B'cha chasiti, in you I covered myself, meaning completely trusted. B'cha patachti, b'shua secha. And you keep looking again and again, you start realizing it's a constant, almost every single kapitel. David Malach never went to a therapist. He had nobody to talk to or turn to except Hashem. The only one person that's recorded that I'm aware of is Yonatan, his very close friend, where they were strategizing whether or not Shaul really was giving David a fair chance or not, in which case he would know whether to continue to be on the run. But otherwise, you don't find throughout the life of David HaMelech that he was necessarily actually asking advice from people, because he always turned to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So Hashem is and was the ultimate therapist, and in that sense, he actually found solace. He found complete trust. He found complete security, because the moment I rely on someone Vasav Adam, I have created a limitation to how much that person can help me. But the moment I let go of relying only on that and say, Rebbe Shalom, I'm really only relying on you, and if you send me someone that is your way of sending me someone, then I'll go with it. Like David HaMelech said, Dayeg, what you think you're such a big shot? If I didn't get bread from the Kohen of I've got Hashem could send it another way. So you think your lashon hara would have helped? Hashem can help me in other ways. So he never relied on human beings, even if it was a Kohen or if it was a Navi. He relied on being mevatel his das to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which I think is what Rav Nachman talks about many, many times. Any questions or comments on this? So I'm going to open up a different angle to this, and that is possibly the greatest obstacle to simcha, tamid, which is what this Torah is really about, is knowing I have averas, and my memory of my averas holds me back from fully experiencing simcha, because I know I've heard that person, and I know I haven't made shalom with that person. I know that person is still upset with me, and I also know that if I try to make shalom, it probably is going to backfire. And so, whatever is the inyan or regret for things I've done in the past, and then I fall into the actual belief that I don't even deserve to be b'simcha because my teshuvah is not enough. And for this, I want to share with you. Rav Nachman tells us in Chaf Vav in Sichas Aran, he says, Etzel ha'olam, the world considers hashikha, forgetting chesaron gadol be'eineihem. In their eyes, it's considered a huge, it's a non-virtue, not having a good memory, forgetting. It's talking about forgetting. Aval be'enai yesh behashikra maila gedola. Now, he doesn't mention other, except near the end, he'll say another maila for shikra, but right now he's saying, I see in this a tremendous virtue, an amazing benefit. If there was no forgetfulness, a person just couldn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? He wouldn't be able to stand up. He can't lift himself up if he were to remember everything that ever happened and he did wrong. All his memories of things that happened in the past that didn't go well in the marriage, with the business, in the career, in the spiritual growth, in davening, in learning, with the family, with the children. A person has a tremendous benefit that he can get on with now instead of looking in the rear mirror and trying to drive the car that way. It's impossible. So he says here, Ve'etzloi, Rav Nosson saying about Rav Nachman now, Ve'etzloi haderach shekol ma she'ava v'halach nifsak v'hoylech lahalutim ve'ein choyze b'datoi oid klal. Whatever happened, Rav Nachman just let go. Now, lahachlit is a very interesting lashon because it actually means to cut off. And it's used in English, the translation is usually to make a decision. Hachlat is to make a decision. And that's exactly what a real decision is. It's cut off all other options. Psak, to be posek, a psak din means you've cut out all the other possibilities, and now you come to a psak. Sof pasuk, this is the end. We finished with that pasuk, we're moving on. So the whole concept here is an attitude towards what happened. Move on, let go. Madahava hava. It's an expression often in Shas, what happened, happened. And Rashi, I think I've quoted before, I think it's in Yuma Daf Hey, I think Amud Aleph at the bottom, Rashi says, Ma dahava hava, ma lanu lish'ol alav. So what is there for us to ask about it? You got a reason to ask? Okay, let's see where that goes. But if asking about what happened leads me to resentment, anger, bitterness, natira, nakama, a sinner, kina, then I know I'm in zone 2, and Hashem says, don't go there. It's non-reality thinking. I don't belong there. So one of the biggest sabotages, I believe, of simcha is thinking about the past. And Rav Nachman said, use shikha to your advantage. Let go. Oh, you're going to put aside, as Rav Nachman says at the end of the Torah we're learning, right at the end, said, oh, you want to put aside time to have regret over the past? Okay, so put aside time for that. But not mara shchara, not atzvus, not depression, not being down on oneself. So I'm going to share with you, in Chaimron, it's in paragraph 453, where Rav Nachman basically says something really extraordinary. I may have quoted this before, but this is in a new context. We're going to look now at how the resistance I have to a full teshuvah is because I think teshuvah is so complicated. I've got so much to do teshuvah for, and I get so overwhelmed by it that I'm handcuffed. I can't even begin to let myself go, because how can Hashem accept my teshuvah? There's so much to do. Comes on Rav Nachman and tells us something too. I'm going to share 2 places in Chaimron where he talks about how he does teshuvah, which is totally mind-blowing, and it really opened up a whole world for me when I realized that we actually don't even have a word in Lashon HaKodesh for regret. Charata is mistranslated as regret. It was brought to my attention this Rosh Hashanah, and then I looked up all over the place I could ever find where the word nechama, which is mistranslated as regret, doesn't mean that at all. And it blows my mind. And what we're going to see now, the way Rav Nachman talks about it, it's embarrassingly simple. So comes along Rav Nachman, and this is in paragraph 453 in Chaimron. Just like you see me now, meaning to say, you hold of me as a complete tzaddik. Afal pike. Nevertheless, this is very strong language. This came out of the mouth of Rav Nachman. Im hayisi over has v'shalom aveira. If I were to do an aveira, not finished. Gedola, not a stam aveira, a big one, not finished. B'yoser. If I were to do an exceptionally big aveira, averas chamuras, Rambam's definition is any avera where there's misas basin or kares. And there's two others, shua shav and shua sheker, but otherwise all the rest are considered averas colors. That's in Hilchas Tshuva for which is apropos for Yom Kippur coming up very soon in a shul near you. So comes along, Rav Nachman says, even if I were to do the worst imaginable avera, afal pikein loy haisa ha'avera mashleches osi klal. That avera would not pull me down. I would not be thrown down to the ground by that avera. So what would he do? Rak hayisi acha avera ish kasha k'moy kaidem. I'll be the same ish kasha as I was one moment before the avera. This is extraordinary. Rak achakach hayisi oisa tshuva. It just happens to be I would do teshuva immediately, right afterwards. So what's Rav Nachman's version of teshuva? So I want to share with you what he says in Kuf Tzadik Vav 196, also in Chaim Moran. He's talking about crying in front of Hashem like a child. I was this Rosh Hashanah, Erev Rosh Hashanah. I knew it would be ridiculously packed at the Tzion, so I said, you know what, I'm going anyway. And every entrance I tried to get through, and there were a couple of new ones I never even knew they were opened up. I never saw it before. From the old lady's house, I didn't realize there was a side entrance at the back that is like a shortcut back into the actual chutzah. I didn't realize that. I never saw it before. Anyway, it was completely crowded, and then all of a sudden, literally within seconds, I know what their names are. The mishtadlim there with the orange, yellow jackets started pushing everyone away from the tzion itself in order to create a corridor. And there were only two people left there. Somehow or other, I was left alone, and in front of me was Nissim David Kivak, and he was holding a Tikkun Klali very close to his face. Ki'ilu, he was reading it, but his tears were just pouring down his face, and he was talking. And it reminded me that when I talk about talking to Hashem like a baby, like a little child crying because mommy or daddy is far away, and I feel I want to be close to you. Please don't be far from me. So Rav Nachman was talking about how one should cry with tears. Why? Why is it about crying? I feel so far away. Now Rav Nachman says the following. When I do teshuva, the benefit of my teshuva is way more than your teshuva. And the wording here I find so profoundly simple, but it's really profound. I do simple teshuva. I'm going to mistranslate it as regret because we always do, but we're going to see in a few minutes what it actually means. And I'm very ashamed. And I accept upon myself never to do it ever again. End of story. End of story. So I thought, okay, it sounds like it's oversimplifying it. You let go and you do tshuva and move on. But then it occurred to me, Rav Nachman was really mechaven exactly to what Rambam says in Hilchas Tshuva. Rambam says the following. It's in Hilchas Tshuva. It's in Perek base, and it's in Halacha base. Umahia Teshuva, hu shiyazav achayta chetay. The achayta, the mistake he made, he stops doing it. And now here's the key. V'yasirenu mimachshava asay, and he removes it from his mind. He stops thinking about it. V'yigma beliboy, same lashon as Rav Nachman, and he commits in his mind shelo yasehu ad. He will not do it ever again. That's tshuva. Rambam brings a pasuk, and also yitnahem al sha'ava. that we usually translate Yinachem as regret. It bothered me very much when I realized I've been mistranslating this. How did I let the translations hijack pshat? And it's not a subtlety. It's so different from what it really is. So let me share with you what regret is in the dictionary, which we use all the time. Regret: to feel sorry, disappointed, distressed about. For example, regretted the error I made. To remember with a feeling of loss or sorrow, mourn. To feel regret, a sense of loss, a longing for someone or something gone. A feeling of disappointment or distress about something. That's a perfect definition of the English word regret. Nechama doesn't mean that. Nechama means a machshava hafuch, change of mind, change of thought. That means to say one is completely not thinking about the Aveira. He's got a completely different perspective on the mistake that was made or the Aveira that was done. And what's that perspective? I will never do that again. I can never do that again. I can't believe I did that. And every time he thinks that, it pushes him further away from the mistake. I'll bring you proof. Listen carefully, because John Gray would love this. This is called functional regret versus dysfunctional regret. Dysfunctional regret is when I have regret right after the Aveira, and I haven't done Teshuvah. Teshuvah, as Rav Nachman says, is b'pshitus. I stopped doing it, and I promise myself I'll never do that again. And but shum oifen, I don't care what the circumstances, I'm never doing that ever again. And if Chas v'shalom it to happen again, he'll make a new hachlata. Ligma belibai. Complete commitment. It's a total commitment. So when a person has regret after doing teshuvah, that's functional. Why is that functional? Because a person is no longer local to the Aveira. It happened. He doesn't even look at himself as the same person anymore, which we'll see in a few moments. And so every time he remembers what he did wrong, it pushes him further away from it. As long as I haven't let go of the actual Aveira, because I'm still thinking about it, that's the Lashon of Rambam, stop thinking about the Aveira. And that means, it's gone, it's finished, move on. Stop thinking about it. As long as I've stopped thinking about it, now I can have regret. That regret's functional. There's a pasuk from Yirmiyahu, Perek Lamed Aleph, I think pasuk Yudches. After I did teshuvah, achrei shuvi nechamti, then I regret it. We usually think of, 1 second, you do regret and then do teshuvah. That's not what Rambam is pasking over here. And that's what Rav Nachman is talking about. Do the teshuvah, let go, and I'm never doing it again. And just let go, don't think about it. Why? Because when I think about it, it pulls me down. It pulls me closer to, and now I am the mistake. It's not I did a mistake, I am the mistake. This is not a small thing to take into account. So let me share with you where in Perek Vav, Pasuk Vav, in Bereshis. This is right at the end of Parshas Bereshis, coming up soon in a shul near you. We're going to be reading this, where after the description of the corruption of mankind on the world, Vayar Hashem saw ki rabba ra Adam ala aretz, v'kol yetzer machshavos libay rak ra kol hayom. All the designs of the thoughts in his mind were only, what can I do more evil? Vayinachem Hashem. So Hashem says, and I'm going to erase regret. Hashem had a change of mind, a different thought. We're going to see right now what Rashi says. Vayinachem Hashem ki asa et ha'adam ba'aretz. Hashem had a different thought about having created man on earth. This makes much more sense than to say regret, because anyway, regret is a problematic word to attach to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and there are Mefarshim that explain. But now that we know, Yinachem means a change of thought. It's a change of mind. I have a different perspective on what I said or did. Look at Rashi. V'Yinachem nechva machshavasoi shel makom midas rachamim lemidas adin. Hashem had a different thought. That originally he was going to make the world with midas adin. It's not going to have a kiyum. So then he created it with midas harachamim. But the problem now is that we have gone and taken advantage of it and corrupted ourselves. And so Hashem said, okay, so I'm going to go back to a different thought. So it's not regret. Regret is the way I shared from the dictionary. Sorrow, distress, I'm disappointed. And I'm pulling myself down with all that. But this is the wrong translation, because it's not what it means. It means I've changed my mind. I've changed the way I look at what I did. It was wrong. I'm doing teshuvah and I'm moving on. And I'm not going there. I'm not going to talk about it. So says Rashi, Nehbach machshavaso shel makam midas rachamim lemitzadim. And vechein kol lashon nichum shebemikra. Every time you have this word, nechama, in a pasuk throughout Tanakh, lashon nimlach ma lasos. It's a change of mind of what I'm going to do now. It's not talking about the past. So this is how, from now on, I'm never going to let that word come out my mouth in this marriage. And from now on, I'm going to do everything I possibly can not to make a face like that to this child. From now on, I'm going to hold a picture of this child in my wallet so that every time I pull out money or a credit card, it's right on top of all the others, and I see it and remind myself, this child is a good child, a perfect child. And whatever they've been through, it's for me to have rachamim, not for me to have midas hadin. So Rashi gives a few examples wherever you see in various psukim where Hashem v'yinachim Hashem al hara. For example, by the Chet Egel, it doesn't mean Hashem regretted. It means Hashem changed his mind. Now he's going to wipe us all out. But then he had a change of mind because of Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillas. Nechamti ki hamlachti. That's when Hashem said about having crowned Shaul HaMelech, he told Shmuel HaNavi, Nechamti, I've changed my mind. The word regret fits poetically in the English translation, but it's not accurate. And it's sending us in a totally different place. It's sending me back into the Aveira that I did, and there I go into distress and sorrow and mourning. That's the definition. And that's, I think, the connotations we usually associate to regret. And there's no such word. Nechamti means I changed my mind. I've got a new perspective on how I look at what I've been through. Kulam loshen ha-machshava acheret hem. Every single one of the words nechama throughout Tanakh, kulam, says Rashi, loshen machshava acheret, changed my mind. I was recently going to have brain surgery, and then I changed my mind. So we're here to change our minds, and that's what nechama charata is. Now charata is a different word; it's not a biblical word. But charata, really, actually, there is a word cheret, which means to scratch and to engrave, to scratch out, and that makes sense here too, because I'm just completely scratching the past. So I'm going to give you another very interesting raya, which is Perek Chav Zayin, pasuk Mem Beis. Vayugad leRivka. It was told to Rivka, Beruch HaKodesh, says Rashi, et divrei Esav b'na, the words of her son Esav, Hagadol, who was the older, because he planned now to kill Yaakov. And she heard Baruch HaKodesh, his plan. V'tishlach v'tikra leYaakov b'na hakatan v'toimei elav. She called Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, Hine, pay attention, Esav achicha mitnachem l'cha lehargecha. He has changed his mind. And Rashi tells us there, mitnachem l'cha, nicham al ha'achva, he is comforted. He's changed his mind about the relationship of brotherhood over here. Lachshav machshava acheret. He's got a new thought. And what's that? Litnake l'cha ulhargecha. He's planning how to plot a way to kill you. Medrash Agada kva ata mam be'ein be'einav. He quotes now. Rashi quotes the Medrash Agada that what she said to Yaakov is that mitznachim over here means that he has already, he looks at you as dead. As far as he's concerned, in his eyes, you're already dead. V'shasa alecha koshel tanchumim. So he's drinking a cup of comfort because he's got a new mindset. So the comfort is he's got a new mindset. So if we're going to use the word comfort as in Nechama, it means because I've got a different way of looking at it.
Nichum Avelim and all that.
Nichum Avelim. Yeah.
It's commonly translated as to console.
Console. And a real console is like Koheles tells us, it's better to go to a house of mourners than a Beis HaMishneh, because we can remind ourselves the tachlis of LM2 is we're on our way out. From the moment we're conceived, the clock is ticking, and my time will be up. And it's a huge comfort to go to a place of Aveilus, because I'm going to remind myself where I'm going. This is where we're all going. I think I once shared with you, I can't remember where it was, some out of town place. I went for Shabbaton, and the rabbi of the shul, he told me he recently lost his father. I think I shared this and his brothers were like arguing back and forth because the father went, I think, for a hernia disc and didn't come out the hospital, and they were saying, "No, they should have got a second opinion," and it was wrong. And it was going back and forth until he told me that someone came to the shiva and said the following words, and it closed the whole parsha. He said, when Hashem is sitting in Shemayim and a new neshama comes up that just died, Hashem never went, "Oops." like Ki'ilu made a mistake. There's no such thing. So let go of all the cheshbonos. If we did it this way, we lived a bit long. Let go. Hashem has a perfect calculation. So Rashi says, "Ulfi pshutoi lashon tanchumim mitnachem hu ala brachos beharikatecha." He's changed his mind about the blessings because now he's going to kill you. He's not stuck in the previous mindset that he regretted not getting there before you. He has it's not about regret, it's about a different mindset. He's celebrating he's going to kill you. So it's all about, so we don't have a word for regret in Lashon Kodesh, which means it doesn't exist. Because it's not in God's dictionary. It's just a different perspective. Yirmiyahu, Perek Ches Pasuk Vav, Ein ish nicham al ra'asai. Person doesn't change his mind about the evil he's done. Lema ma asiti, and then take cheshbon and say, what did I do wrong? Says the Metzudas on that Perek Ches Pasuk Vav in Yirmiyahu. What's it mean? Nicham inyan charata v'havuch machshava. Charata is changing your mind. That is what it is. And we looked at what Rambam says in the next halacha of Rambam, Perek Beis halacha Gimel. Kol hamidvade b'dvarim, anyone who does vidui dvarim, v'loy gama b'liboy, but didn't make a complete commitment. That's what Rav Nachman was talking about. A total commitment. Let go. La'azov, to let go of the Aveira. Harizeh doim l'toivel b'sheretz b'yadoi. He's going to the mikveh to be toivel, to become tahor, but he's holding on to the Aveira, he's holding on to the sheretz that made him tam in the first place. She'ena tvila mo'eles loy ad sheyashlech hasheret. I can't do teshuvah until I've let go. That's when teshuvah actually starts. So you can see this consistently throughout Tanakh. And then in Hilchas Teshuvah, the same Perek Beis, halacha dalad, I want to share with you what it says there. Medachi ateshuva liyos hashav tzayek tamid. Someone who's doing teshuvah is crying out, screaming out constantly. Lifnei Hashem b'richi u'b'tachanunim v'oised tzedaka kivikocha u'misrachek harbe min adava. He distanced himself from the Aveira. Shachata boy, that he made a mistake with. U'mishane shmoi. And he changes his name. Kloima, meaning to say, Aniacha. Oh, that's the old Rietti. I don't even relate to him. He's not related to me. It's the same name as a different person. I'm not the person who did all those things. Excuse me, it's on video. We've got it taped. No. This is where I exist, and that's not me anymore. And that's what counts in Shemayim. He changes his behavior. So I'm sharing with you an amazing Chidush Arim on Sarah Imenu. Sarah Imenu, how did she do Teshuvah? Exactly like Rav Nachman described. What was that? In chapter Perek Yud Ches, Pasuk Yud Beis onwards, you see that the three Malachim came and they gave news that she's going to have a child. What was her gut reaction? Vatitzchak Sarah Bikirba. She laughed. She laughed inside. I'm too old to have children. My skin is all crinkled. But Adoni Zakin, my husband is out of it. Why did she laugh? Hashem changed the whatever there in order for Shalom Bais. So she said, I'm too old. Is there something I can't do? I can do anything. Now Sarah Menu, she caught herself out. Because the next pasuk says, "V'tikachesh Sarah," she denied it. Sarah, the Torah wrote, you laughed. Lema, she denied it, saying, "Lo sahakti." I didn't laugh. Comes along the Hiddush Yerim, the Torah just was made, testified, you laughed. How can you get away with saying Lo Sahakti? So said the Hiddush Yerim, he quotes this Rambam and she said, oh, that's the old Sarah. She wouldn't relate to it. Oh, that's the old Sarah. And then the biggest in the sign was, Ki Yare'ah, the usual touch of that is she was afraid. She wasn't afraid, she was a huge tzedekah. She wasn't afraid. She had a real Yiras Hashem, which means that when she was told a second time, you did laugh, she ignored it. There's no discussion about it afterwards. Why? Because what's the Ikar Teshuvah? Oh, you're going to be embarrassed by someone's accusation? Let go. Keep quiet. You don't mistake. It was the first Breslov Haazinu. She understood. Teshuvah means one thought later, oh, of course, I've been begging Hashem for 90 years, so of course he can give me a child. So she undid the Sachat, and when she's accused of it, that was the old Sarah. It's immediate, and move on. And I think it's so important because this is what I think Rav Nachman is trying to really imprint upon us. And that's why he tells us, and we've quoted it before, in Kuf Yud Beis in Tinyana, Le'inyan hischaskus lebal yipol ha'adam bedatoi machmas riboy ha'pegamim. Person should not fall because of all the mistakes he's made, all the pegamim, all the terrible kilkulim, shekilkel, al dei maisav, through all his crazy behaviors. Ana v'ama, ima tamamim shecholim lekalkel, tamim shecholim letaken. If you really believed you did it and you messed up, you got to use the same logic. You can't be inconsistent. If you're going to have that munah that you messed up, then use the same logic and apply it to being mitaken. And this is, I think, what Rav Nachman is really out to imprint upon us, that simcha tamidi is a possible reality. But I got to have tachbulis, but tachbulis tasib milchama. I got to know that the Yetzer Hara is not going to let me stay there. He's going to bring back, Rietti, right. Well, what about these people who, even if you try to get mechila from Erev Yom Kippur, they'll put the phone down on you. So don't tell me you can be b'simcha when you know jolly well how many people you've hurt, and they're still smarting. So comes along Rav Nachman says, and I heard this on Rosh Hashanah from Reb Chaim Kramer, that when there's I don't know which Igeret is, which Michtav it's in LM2, where Rav Nosson says to his son Rabbi Yitzchak that when you come for Rosh Hashanah, Hashem, what Rav Nachman meant when Hashem gave him the matana of knowing what Rosh Hashanah is that he can be mataken everything, no matter what the Averas are. So I asked if that includes Ben Adam Lechavera, because the halacha really is that Ben Adam Lechavera, until you get Mekila, it's not mataken. So the answer I got was Rav Nachman promises that Hashem gave him a matana of knowing that Rosh Hashanah is something that is real. It's Yom Hadin, but he's got a special in to be able to work it out that whatever happens, Hashem will bring about through his persuasion that the tikkun for every Bein Adam Lechavera will be brought about as well, even if I'm not up to it. So it's a matter of a deep emunah. Rav Nachman he said, and he was ashamed, literally ashamed of the Torahs he said before he went to Eretz Yisrael. One of those Torahs was he was talking about only one person every generation knows which of the 24 Batei Dinim in Shemayim to go to for a specific type of a pigeon. And he describes there that if you go to the lower Beit Din and you don't get a psak that you like, so you appeal to the next one above, and there's 24 total, and if every single one of them doesn't agree, so Rav Nachman said of himself, then I'll just go to the case myself. I'll just go directly to the king, the emperor, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and plead the case, and there he can override all the other 23 Batei Dinim. So he said this before going to Eretz Yisrael, and he actually requested that none of his Torahs would be included in the Likutei Moharan that were said before Eretz Yisrael, because of the different madrigas that he came to. He only wants those Torahs to be recorded. But it's extraordinary that he talks about how an neshama can come into Shemayim, and it could be naked of mitzvahs, but there's such a thing as a tzaddik giving him a garment, and that person being able to get into Gan Eden because of that garment, so he's not completely naked. This sounds like a chiddush, and it really isn't. In the Litvish world, it's not talked about that much. Actually, it's avoided, even to the point where Reb Chaim of Volozhin, in his own Savar, requested that nobody use the lotion of Melitz Yosher about him. It's extraordinary, because they wanted to shy away from the koach of the tzaddik, because they were worried that Hasidus was a new Has v'Shalom Christianity. Now I think it's been proven beyond that it's a legitimate, but nevertheless, that's how far it went. So they didn't want the tzaddik, the koach of the tzaddik, to be on the map. It's a different discussion. It's worthwhile looking into another time. But the Baal Shem Tov put the tzaddik back on the map. Before him, you had the Arizal and the Rashbi, and before them, you had David HaMelech, who pulled his own son out of Gehenna into Gan Eden, which was extraordinary in of itself, and even the Gemara had a hard time understanding that. So, Tosfos in Daf Yud, I think it is, in Sota, asks how could David do that? A son can be Mizaki the father, but we don't see that the father can be Mizaki the son and get him out of Gehenna. So the Tosfos answers, but the tefillah of David was different. That's different. David was a tzaddik gamor, but he was also a tzaddik emes, and he was able to do that. And I didn't check it in my notes. It's not in my notes, but Rav Nachman said of himself, "I can do that for anyone." David HaMelech could do it for his son. But Rav Nachman is claiming he can do that for any person. So no wonder he says, "Please come to my keva any time of the year, but especially Rosh Hashanah." So all this depends on an emunah, but I'm going to say it's not a regular emunah. It's emunah's chushes, because Rav Nachman says in Torah Reish Nun Hey, at the end of Tinyana, Reish Nun, it's a very short Torah. Can you look it up very quickly? Reish Nun Hey. I think I made a song out of this Torah to remind myself. K'sha'adam hu ma'amin b'hatzadik bli shum das. If a person has emunah, it's real emunah, but it's not with das. We can have to see it in a few moments. What does that mean? Efshar lo lipol me'emunah. He can fall from the emunah. Ki me'emunah levad efshar lipol. If it's only emunah, I can fall. I'm understanding there's really two types of emunah. There's emunah pshuta, and there's emunah chushes. Emunah pshuta means the emunah that you can't function without. You can't function without emunah pshuta. If you go in a car, just Lamashal, and you're traveling from Moldova to Uman in the middle of the night, and it's two-way direction, and the average speed of both ways is about 90 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, 140, 150 kilometers an hour. Am I exaggerating? In both directions, right? And I don't know how many times I said Shema Yisrael. It used to be like that. I remember even under communist Russia, the cars would go as fast as they possibly could on the highway in both directions. There's no barrier in between. That was the Russian highways. And I remember passing along the side a huge truck that collided with a car. And the roof had been totally flown off. We saw it quite a few yards away from the car. The car had burnt, and all the passengers had been trapped and were burnt inside the car. And it was one of the worst things, probably the worst thing I think I ever actually saw. And when I got to Uman, I was so shocked by this. So someone came 3 hours later and said, "You'll never believe what we saw." And it's exactly the same thing. It was a truck. The truck driver was smoking a cigarette outside, and they're still waiting for an ambulance. These are the roads. When you go on a road like that, you go with emunah pshuta. You don't know you're going to arrive safely, but you are assuming that the driver you have is sober, fully rested, caffeinated, and didn't have Sean Bice issues last night, that he's got full attention to the road, and you have emunah pshuta, extremely simple, almost blind faith, that the opposite direction, every car and truck is also sober, caffeinated, and their mind is not on the silly phone, the mad phone. They're fully. You can't go on an airplane unless you are emunah pshuta, that the pilot has his license and has done. One lady once went on. She was shivering. And she came on did I tell you this one? She came on the plane and she was shaking. So the pilot was greeting everyone coming in, and he said, "Are you okay, ma'am?" I said, "No." I said, "What's the matter?" "This is the first time I've ever flown." I said, "Oh, don't worry, it's mine too." So a person can't go in a car on any street except with the Munah Pshuta, because your Munah is assuming that everyone's got a license and is sober and is not looking at their phone, they're not texting, etc., etc., etc. But a Munah's Chushis, no one's going to fool you after you've experienced this wine is the real Hungarian wine. So when you taste any other wine, if it's not the same, your mouth will be able in a second be able. Ellie Goldman on the plane, he gave me McTivis, I've forgotten, a chocolate biscuit, you call it a cookie, from England, McVitie's, and it's chocolate coated, and I haven't had that biscuit probably in about 3 decades. And I hadn't swallowed it, just biting it, there was an immediate trigger of the memory of that taste and the texture. Immediate between the actual texture of the biscuit and the. Once you've tasted, if he tried to sell on me that's got the same name but it's not, I would have known in a split second if it's the same or not, because the power of reich and taste is so strong. And coming from Rav Nachman, if you've tasted my Torah, you will know that if someone tries to flog you on something else and it's not the real thing, you'll know it's not the real thing. And so that's the mashal with the Hungarian wine. So comes along Rav Nachman and says that there's another level of emunah which has das. And das means you know. You really, really know. About im yesh lo gam das shemevin gam hadas. You know. How can you know? You have to experience it. Ta'amu uru ki taiv Hashem. Oh, you've tasted it. You can see for yourself. These are chushim. You can taste it with your own tongue, and you can see it with your own eyes. You can't unlearn what you've tasted. That's why all dinim in Shulchan Aruch in Beis Din, they won't paskin something as factual until you've got at least 2 kosher witnesses who give the same testimony after Rishon Hakira if it's necessary. That establishes a fact, because you need 2 people who experienced. They didn't hear it, they didn't read about it, they didn't hear it secondhand from someone else. First-hand eyewitnesses creates a fact, and you need 2 of them. So that's da'as. You can't undo what you know. So if you know because you've tasted and you've seen for yourself, hisbodus, you see what it does to the person. You see what it does, nekudas tovos, it can save a marriage. You see what it does, the dark sky at night, and you see little stars, those are nekudas tovos. There's a huge expanse of darkness, but one small star out of trillions of light years can light up that section of the night. And one small good nekuda can change my mind. When I change my mind, nechama, I can change my perspective. And it makes so much sense now why it is that Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Tarfon, and Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah, the colleagues of Rabbi Akiva, when they say, "What is the matter with you?" He was laughing when he saw the destruction of the Temple Mount. It had been destroyed already, but he sees Shualim, Holkim by, and they're crying with real tears, real sorrow, real sad. And he's laughing. He said, "What are you laughing about?" And of all answers, he says, "Why are you crying?" He said, "Why are we crying? I don't understand your question. We're crying. We've torn Kriya because it's a halacha when you see the korban of the Har HaBayis where the Beis HaMikdash stood, and we see shualim halchim by, we see foxes, a tame animal going across where the Kodesh HaKodashim was. How can we not cry?" So he said, "Well, I'm laughing because of the irony that in the same way that Hashem said in Yirmiyahu, it was Eicha, Perek Hey, I'm trying to remember now, where he said, Ir Shemama, about Shualim Holchim Bay, that there's going to be a time when the city will be flattened, destroyed, and foxes will cross over the Har HaBayis. You have emunah that would happen, and now you saw it happen. You saw it with your own eyes. So I'm laughing at the irony. Hashem's going to keep all the future promises as well. He's going to rebuild the Beis Shlishi, and the Zkanim and the Na'arim and the children are going to be laughing and dancing together in the streets. And what was their response? Akiva nichamtanu. Akiva nichamtanu. And nichamtanu here doesn't mean you comforted us. You gave us a new perspective. Our mind has changed. We look at the world differently. There is no ra. You're only good. And it's entering that zone, calling it zone 3. That is what I think Rav Nachman is selling to us. Please buy in. He says, please buy. Mitzva Gedola liyos b'simcha tamid. It's not a chumrah. It's not a nice option. There's no other option. What's the option to not being b'simcha? There is, every other option is not an option. And get out of there as soon as I recognize I'm in zone 2, get out of there. So it comes along with Nachman and says, as I efshal lo lipol. If you've got emunah with das, you can't fall. You can't fall. It's impossible. That's amazing. That's amazing. So if I'm not there, I know what to daven for. And if I am there, that's something to be extremely added to the simcha inventory bank of deposits. Having emunah in the tzaddik, or emunah chushas as we're calling it, with das. That's very powerful. We're not going to be meeting next week, but we will continue after Yom Tov. And we'll decide whether to finish this. I've got a few more notes left to finish this on Simcha, and then we'll go straight into Torah Zion, or go right into Torah Zion. Maybe we've got a basin of 3 here if you want to decide for everyone else. I'm good either way.
Beautiful.
Okay,
amazing series. Thank you.
Baruch Tiyeh.
Mark Simon.